We're going to begin on the headlines this morning. That's going to take us down to South Carolina, where last night former President Donald Trump won the South Carolina primary by a big margin. This one wasn't even close, double digits, beating former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley. Now that moves Trump closer to another GOP nomination, as the 2024 presidential election is now shaping up clearly to be a rematch between incumbent President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump.
You can celebrate for about 15 minutes, and we have to get back to work.
I'm not giving up this fight when a majority of Americans disapprove of both Donald Trump and Joe Biden.
All right, so for more on this with some analysis, we want to welcome in this morning Molly Ball. She is the senior political correspondent for the Wall Street Journal and author of Pelosi, a biography of the first woman Speaker of the House. Molly joining us live this morning. Molly, how are you?
Great, thanks. How you doing? Nice to be here with you.
I don't see you, but I hear you. So just give me your brief takeaway right now on what happened in South Carolina last night. Obviously, Nikki Haley, you know, the former governor of that state. Donald Trump came in there, and not by a small margin, decisively beat her, but yet Haley says she's staying in this race. What do you see in South Carolina?
It's about what we expected, and it is, as you mentioned, a dominant victory for Donald Trump. We were pretty sure he was going to win by double digits, according to all the polls, and that was, in fact, what happened. I think you're correct that, you know, being Nikki Haley's home state, this is a blow for her. This is a psychic blow to her campaign, even if we saw it coming. It's tough. It's a little bit humiliating to not be able to win the state where you previously won 2 statewide elections as governor. And what we've seen is that Trump looks pretty much unstoppable in this Republican primary, and he has for a while. Since winning so decisively in Iowa and also in New Hampshire, he has only increased his margins of victory, and he looks dominant in all the states yet to come, in the Michigan primary that's coming up this week, and in the 16 states that will vote on Super Tuesday on March 5th. So despite Haley's vow to stay in the race, I think she's going to face increasing pressure to get out and unify the Republican Party, and increasing questions about what she's even doing when there isn't much of a path to victory that anyone can see for her.
Molly, before we move on, let's talk about that, because while Nikki Haley has gotten a lot of attention, what she has not gotten at this point is any victories. What is her calculus for staying in this race?
It's really not clear. Her team still has not pointed to a single state where she says she can actually win. In her speech last night, she said, "I'm an accountant. I know that 40% isn't 50%, but it also isn't a small group." So she really sees herself as speaking for that 40% of the Republican Party that still isn't ready to get on board with another Donald Trump nomination. She's making a point. She's sending a message. But what she isn't doing is making a plausible case that she can win. So it seems that she's in this race for other reasons, and as long as she's got the money and the campaign infrastructure to continue, she's able to do that.
All right, so let's talk about some of the things going on the Hill right now. Obviously, the immigration deal, you know, appears to be scuttled at this point. The Senate was able to work something out. It was a dead end in the House. Is there any hope in an election year immigration reform could become a reality?
Well, never say never, but at this point, even the negotiators who crafted that Senate border compromise that you mentioned have said that they believe that it is dead. It met a very swift end shortly after being unveiled a couple of weeks ago, despite months of work by these negotiators, Republican, Democrat, and Independent, really, I think, coming from a place of good faith, trying very hard to find a compromise that both sides could agree on, and both sides really giving up a lot after coming to the table in order to meet in the middle. Yet this has just always been a very difficult and toxic issue in our politics for decades now. There hasn't been an ability to solve immigration reform in any kind of comprehensive way. Right. Almost everyone who looks at this topic agrees that our immigration system is badly broken, and that it does require congressional action to fix the way that it's structured, the rules of the road in terms of how people come into this country. Yet over and over, we have seen these attempts at bipartisan reform unable to get through both houses of Congress.
Hey, Molly, we got about 30 seconds. End of the week, we've got this government shutdown deadline. Any hopes of making that deadline, or is there going to be another shutdown all the way?
You know, Congress is like a high school student. They always go right up to the deadline and then they pull an all-nighter, and sometimes they're able to get it over the line. So it's certainly possible. They do have agreement on some pieces of the puzzle, but it's also quite possible that we could have a government shutdown, just given how dysfunctional everything is and the fact that the House has not even been in session for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and that winds up making the rest of us sounding like Chicken Little every time one of these deadlines comes up, because they get right up to it. And the last couple of times, at least, they've been able to make that deadline. Hopefully, that is the case again this time. Molly Ball, the senior political correspondent for the Wall Street Journal, thank you for joining us.